Well, congratulations to the most successful start to an event we've had in months. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Um, Today, we're excited to have everybody. We're talking about a lot of interesting subjects. We're talking about the future of employee benefits, group benefits, the future of work, and health-related diseases. We're thinking about this from a holistic perspective, right? It's not just about insurance. It's not just about the health industry, the retail industry, the employment industry, but it's really about how can we all work together and realize we're sharing a lot of the same data, a lot of the same customers, a lot of the same distribution methods, and how we can combine resources, innovate together, and really figure out, wow, there's a lot of inefficiency and breakdown here. By having everybody in the same room, looking at new subjects and new concepts, we might be able to create a lot of very meaningful change. And so, as you guys know, here at Plug and Play, our goal is to create the landing pad for that change, to bring the people in that actually have the resources and the capabilities to make that happen, to bring the startups here who really understand, wow, we could leverage today's technology and older methodologies and processes and really create a whole nother product, customer experience, underwriting decisions, everything. So again, thank you for everybody for coming out. We're really excited to have you. This is very much a family, and it's only as good as the people in the audience. So huge thank you for everybody from coming all over the world. Just a quick question. Is anybody here a first-timer at Plug and Play? Love it. Love it. If anybody has any questions, we have our staff back here in the corner. If anybody at Plug and Play would like to raise their hands, we're happy to answer any questions you guys have. There's a lot of crazy things that go on around here, so we want you guys engaged. We would like you guys to meet some more startup companies or to meet some more corporates. So please, be part of the family, ask questions. We're here to help. All right. With that, we have a couple different things lined up for you guys today. As you can see behind me on the agenda, we will have some opening remarks, some exciting fireside chats and panels with industry experts. We'll see a number of startup presentations as well. We are breaking this up into 3 different categories. Our first category is really focused on the future of employment. How many people here are employed? All right, so it should be relevant. Our second panel will be most on the insurance piece of things, group benefits, packaging, distribution, right? And our last panel really focused on the health side, chronic diseases, long-term care. How can we fix this together, right? A few housekeeping items. You will see it's a little bit different today. We are not going to be using the Brella app, but everybody should be able to get access to each other. And again, the Plug and Play staff's here to help you with that. Please download the Lineuper app. It's great. You'll see a floor layout of where to meet everybody. A lot of our networking will be done in the back here today, behind the stage. You'll see access to the speakers, the lineup. You can click on the links for the startups and their profiles. It's a really great platform. Everybody can find the link to that on the back of their badge. Secondarily, we are also using the Slido app today. It's a really fun platform. It's very engaging. You can find that also in the back of your badge. There should be a link in the Lineuper app as well, or website. There you guys can submit questions. There will be Q&As after the startup presentations, so you guys can submit questions in there. If you guys don't get those answered, there's a limited amount of time. You can always follow up and make sure that they do get answered. And we want you guys to be engaged, ask questions. So definitely use that if you want to have follow-ups. I'm sure there are other people in the audience who have the same question as you do, so don't be afraid to ask. Okay, well, as usual, I'm taking up my time. So with that, we'd like to get started. Our first fireside chat is going to be amongst a couple of interesting individuals. You'll see Ali Safavi is the founder and the director of the InsurTech program here at Plug and Play, who has just returned from a long international trip, meeting with a lot of our partners overseas, so lots to learn there. As well as one of our veterans here, who everybody should be familiar with at this point, Bharath Rajaram. I'm sorry if I misspoke that, from Aflac Ventures. Wonderful guy, very insightful, definitely a regular around Plug and Play. So if you have any questions about the startup side or engaging, he's got the best practices for you. So sorry to throw you under the bus there, but if you'd like to raise your hand, everybody here can ask questions to Bharath. All right, with that, I'd like to introduce Ali and Bharath to the stage.
Hello. Hey, Ali. How are you? Good. How are you doing today? That's our fireside chat. So hi, everyone. I'm Ali. I'm running the insurance practice here. Very excited about today. I think this is one of our one of my favorite topics because I just like benefits. And at the same time, it's one of the times, like this year especially, we really try to emphasize on the fact that ecosystems are coming together. And a lot of the events that we have this year is going to be focused on how do we bring like this one, health industry and insurance industry and the whole general future of work concept all together to be able to talk about that topic rather than just deep into one of them. And that's why it's super exciting to be here and have this discussion. And obviously, I'm very excited to have it with my good friend Bharat. We've been working together for now almost 3 years.
Feels like about 10.
Yeah.
At this point.
All right. Ouch. But the exciting thing is that I remember day one that I met Bharat. It was in Saeed's house. It was one of the dinners that Saeed hosts, and he barbecues, as he likes to say, Persian kebabs. And I remember talking to him, and it was at a time that we had grown our P&C program a lot, and on the life side we were very weak. There wasn't that much interest from benefits and life and health. And then I talked to Bharat. I was like, if you guys join, I promise, we're going to have a dedicated life and health program separate than our P&C program. And it was like, are you sure? I'm like, yes. He's like, let me think about it then. And then he came around a few months later, and then the partnership started. So that's why it's super important. I'm very excited to be here with Bharat to talk about the topic.
Absolutely. Let me just second that. I think, when we started, like Ali said, heavily PNC dominated. There wasn't that much for, life and health. But in the last 3 years, since we've been partners, and I'd love to claim credit for all of that, there's been a much more expanded focus. And I think it's a question of timing as well. But a lot more emphasis on the group benefit side, the life and health side as well. So we're very pleased to be partners with you guys.
Thank you. So for the audience, because I know we have a mix of different industries, I'd like to start with who is Aflac? I think a lot of people have seen the duck, especially if they're Japanese.
We are the duck.
Oh, you are the
That's
duck.
it.
Got it. All right, good to know. But who is Aflac? What does Aflac do? Why is it bigger in Japan than US, even though it's an American company? And what does Aflac Venture specifically do?
Great set of questions. So let me try to answer them in order. So Aflac is one of the largest supplemental health and life insurers in the US and in Japan. By supplemental, for those of you that may not be familiar with that term, we are typically insurers that sit over and above major medical. So we're not major medical. So major medical is going to cover you for whatever your in-network, out-of-network visits to doctors and providers. We pay cash directly to the policyholder. There's a few of our friends from the industry here, Unum, I think Trustmark does a lot of that as well. We're within the health and life industry, but we're slightly segmented, slightly separated from the other players in that sense. I think one of your questions was, sort of between Aflac US and Japan, what's the difference? One of the big differences in the US, it's still a private insurer market. In Japan, it's a single payer. So the government pays for all your healthcare expenses. So in Japan in particular, Aflac is a true supplemental, cover your out-of-pocket costs insurance carrier. And what's interesting to note in Japan, to your question about why we've grown so rapidly, when Japan started out on this journey of a single-payer system, the original promise was that they were going to cover 100%. So if you went to the doctor, that's 100% out of, you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. Over the years, clearly all of these types of programs tend to have difficulty, with funding. So the copay or the sort of the deductible portion or your out-of-pocket portion has since, grown from 0 to about 20%. So today it's not that different from, what you would experience here. You go visit a doctor, you pay 20% out of your pocket. But because that has grown over the last 20 years, people find a need to sort of supplement their sort of benefits with Aflac. And so that's one of the reasons. The other reason is timing. So purely, serendipitous. When we entered Japan, Japan was in the process of opening up the insurance industry. So we were one of the first few players in the market. And so that gave us a little bit of an advantage over the others, particularly in what's called third sector or health products in Japan. In the U.S., we've been a pretty stable, strong force. So we still write about close to $1.5 billion in new premiums each year in the U.S. In-force book is about $6 billion. So we're not small in the U.S., but we're obviously much bigger in Japan.
Interesting. So to start the conversation, one of the things that has always fascinated me with the benefit space is that it could be as narrowed or as broad as you want it to be. It's sometimes hard to define what is employee benefits. And I just want to start with that, with the basic foundation of the definitions. Is what is employee benefits, and what does that mean?
As you clearly pointed out, it defies definition, right? But in general, I think, so I'm not an HR person, so I'm not going to take the HR track. I mean, maybe there's other folks that can define it more from that standpoint. But when we think about it, it is what an employer provides to employees in order to acquire talent, in order to retain talent, in order to make sure that the talent remains engaged. Right? So those are the three big things that any employer is looking for. And particularly in sort of these times when there's a scarcity or there's demand for talent and there's a war for talent, frankly, what you offer to the employees becomes really important. So that's the broadest definition of how you can think about employee benefits. Further sort of breaking it down, so unpacking that a little bit, if it's helpful. So we think of it in sort of three buckets. So when you think of employee benefits, the first set of things that you think of is how do you keep your employees and their families healthy, right? And that means insurance, health insurance, or supplemental products, whatever. But also, as the definition is expanding, health and wellness type tools. How do you keep your so what employers have figured out is if you can keep your employees healthy, they are obviously more likely to be productive, but also they're more likely to be engaged. So, and then there's a win-win here for insurers because the healthier the population is, the lower your losses are from an insurance standpoint, from a claim standpoint. So that's one sort of bucket. The second bucket of benefits that we think of is sort of financial stability. Right? It starts with your salary or your pay and your bonus, but there's other things, there's other tools that employers provide to employees to make sure that they're not in financial distress. Now, with millennials coming in, that could take the form of new benefits like student loan payments. There's startups like PayActive that are about helping employees get access to their earned but unpaid wages. So those are all things that have to do with financial stability. And the last bucket is financial protection. So when you think of retirement, when you think of college education for your kids, so this is longer term, and there's life insurance in that mix as well. So those are some of the sort of the pieces that we think of when we think of financial protection in the long term. But hopefully that's a good way of thinking about, it's a construct at least to think about employee benefits.
Is it a new concept or it's always been like that? Because like traditionally speaking, whenever I think about benefits providers, is basically supplementary health or anything that is in a group format offering. But it sounds like this is newer concept. I just want to make sure I understand that.
I don't think it's a newer concept in and of itself. I think what it is really is about new benefits being added to these buckets. That's how we think of it at least. These fundamental sort of pieces of what an employer offers to an employee, I think, have been fairly stable. It's just newer things that get added depending on what kinds of demographic employee bases you're catering to.
And a question that might sound very obvious, but I just want to make sure I understand it. The way that I like to do these discussions is to think about questions that I have and hope that other people might have the same questions. I hope this resonates. Is that who is your customer? Is it the employee who, as you said, is trying to retain talent and attract talent? Or is it the policyholder at the end of the day who is trying to just have financial protection for their health loss?
That's a phenomenal question, actually. So for us,
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have three sets of customers. So our distribution force actually is a customer. So our agents, our brokers. So they are our first level of customers. The second set of customers, and this is all external facing. Obviously, you have internal customers for every process. The second set of customers as you look at is the employer, because they're typically the gateway to the employee. So you have to sell the employer on what products you want to put in and what products they're looking to put in. And then the third sort of layer of customers is the actual employee or the policyholder. So that's how at least we think of it at Aflac.
Interesting. So that being said, when I think about what could be interesting for benefits providers such as Aflac, it sounds like it's very broad, because if Aflac is a health benefits provider, there might be a lot of interest in health. But if Aflac is trying to look at the employee, which is specifically the HR department, as a customer, then they probably are very interested in HR tech. But then if you're looking at your agent distribution, which means you should be very much interested in retail and distribution technology companies. So where does the interest lie? What are you in the lookout for?
So Ali, when I come to you and tell you I want to be part of the employee benefits in your Enterprise 2.0, I want to be part of your InsurTech, I want to be part of your healthcare, that's why. It is broad. So it is not one that sort of boxes into a particular category. I mean, all of these are important to us. So if we have to retain policyholders, we have to retain employers. So if we bleed employers, we're going to lose all the policies in that account, right? So there's value-added services that we provide to employers. Same thing for policyholders. And I think most insurers here would agree. I think the definition of what an insurer is and what an insurer does is changing. So people are looking for more from their insurers, right? So this could take the form of health and wellness tools of some kind, other mental health sort of assistance and tools, caregiver assistance, another big piece. So these are all sort of what you could bucket as value-added services, but in all honesty, our interests are fairly broad.
So let's get a little bit deeper, because I think when it comes to sexiness of technology, a lot of people are more interested about new stuff than improving stuff. So speaking about new stuff, I mean, when I think about the future of work and all the trends that are happening, that a lot of them are apparent, but when you go into the details, there's a lot of interesting things happening today. How do you think that's going to impact the way that benefits have to be thought about, and what are the new shiny things that it's just happening, that the patterns that you see?
Again, phenomenal question. So we struggle with this all the time because as ventures in the innovation team at Aflac, we're sort of looking out, years down the line. So we're not as much about solving today's problems at Aflac as much as we're looking ahead. But with that said, so when you think of some of the key trends, so there's one which is pretty clear, which is demographics, right? So you have more millennials entering the workforce, more boomers retiring. So that's obviously a pretty clear, evident trend. That's one that is interesting because when you think of what kinds of benefits are millennials looking for versus retirees or maybe the in-betweeners, very different, right? So millennials are typically healthier, so they're not necessarily looking to ramp up their insurance, their health insurance coverage. But on the other hand, they probably just graduated with a mountain of student debt. So they're looking for solutions from their employer that could help them with that. Flip side, they're not looking necessarily 40 years down the line when they're going to retire. So if you said, hey, here's a 401k package, I'm like, okay, well, that's great, but it's not what interests me today. So there's that aspect of sort of the demographics and how that plays into benefits. I think that's sort of the number one factor. The second factor, I think, is in terms of sort of technology and automation. And again, it ties in some form or fashion to the millennials. So, traditionally Aflac employs has about 70,000 independent agents. And most times these agents are the ones that are enrolling, out in the field. They're enrolling policyholders. Now, if you're a millennial, do you really want to sit in front of an agent and go through your benefits or your Aflac enrollment? Technology. So you have to invest in technology and tools that will attract and sort of be engaging to the millennial customer. There's a third aspect of sort of the advances in healthcare and sort of the medical field, which allows people to live longer, right? Now, the problem for in-betweeners, so the folks that are not baby boomers, not millennials, they probably have kids, and they probably have elderly parents. So they're sort of trying to manage dependence on both sides of that. So caregiver assistance, right? Both for sort of physical support as well as sort of mental health. So that's a big play as well. So those are some of the newer sort of benefits that we're looking at, and also how they tie into some of the dominant trends of the day.
So here's another question that, again, it might sound obvious for the audience, as you guys are probably much better experts than I am, is that because this is starting to, because like traditionally speaking, I always thought about benefits as health, supplementary, disability, and then it started to sound like financial protection, even health engagement, and all that kind of stuff. But then as we go up the value chain of benefits, I kind of started wondering, where's the line between benefits as just employee perks? I wouldn't imagine Aflac is going to offer food in cafeteria, or a new car to the employees or kind of stuff. So where does the line end between perks and benefits of how far Aflac is going to go and how, where you're not going to go?
That's again, all these great questions, Ali. So
I'm very proud of myself today.
You're phenomenal. You're doing really well.
Thank you.
It's a good question. So I don't think there's a clear sort of line of demarcation. Now, again, from an HR perspective, there may be a different answer, right? There may be clearly what qualifies as core benefits, and then there's perks. The way I think of it, what is changing is the degree of flexibility in benefits, right? So if you look 5 years or 6 years down the line or 10 years down the line, what I think you're going to find is this matrix of all these different sort of age groups and types of workers. By the way, we've not even talked about sort of the sharing economy and the freelancing and the gig economy. That's another big play. But when you think of all of these sort of buckets of employees and the demographics and all the different benefits, I think what employees are really looking for is the flexibility to be able to pick the kinds of things that matter to them. Now, there's an HR concern here about, is that fair and equitable? I'm not in a position to necessarily answer that. But I think that's the way we see benefits shaping up. It's less about saying, here are the boxes, more about saying what kinds of things make sense to the different kinds of people I have in my payroll.
Speaking about freelancers, I think one of the things that has been talked about a lot is the fact that if the freelance economy is going to pick up, and that basically means going from your enterprises being your customers to a certain extent to the individuals being, how that specific do you think is changing things, or what exciting trends have you seen in terms of startups providing solutions for that, or how Aflac has approached this?
So for Aflac, so this is both in the interest, so with March Madness, this is both an offense question and a defense question, right? So if you think about it, we today, 95% of our business, probably somewhere in that range, is worksite, right? Traditional employers offering Aflac to their employees. So if you throw in a hypothetical scenario where, some significant percentage of those employees become freelancers or, gig workers or whatever, where does Aflac then go? How do we still have access to those employees to be able to sell our products? So it's not an easy question to answer, but so we have to be able to defend our business, right? What we have. So that's number one. So we are looking at alternative approaches, looking to potentially even go outside of the worksite channel to be able to tap those types of workers. On the offense side of the question, what other opportunities does this present to us, right? So are there different kinds of products that we could potentially build for that market? And that's where a lot of my attention is focused towards right now. Now, clearly, there's conflicting numbers about how big the gig economy is, and I'm sure all of you have sort of taken a look at that. I think that the numbers are vastly inflated. It's probably a more moderate number, but it's clearly a number that's growing. So our focus is around, what other kinds of products can we build, whether it's for the Airbnb host or for the Uber driver or even the Uber rider. So those are all questions we're thinking of as we plan our
Any
strategy.
specific benefits that you think are becoming more popular or that you've seen in the market from some of the startups here or outside of here that you're excited about?
Particular to the freelancing?
Benefits in general. Freelance start with freelancing,
sure.
but then maybe
No.
other benefits.
In general, in benefits, I would say the number one that's sort of been top of the headlines is really student loans. So there's a number of startups in that space. There's Future Fuel, there's Peanut Butter, there's a couple of others. So I'm not picking favorites here, but that's one of the most demanded benefits. A lot of surveys and a lot of sort of market research seems to suggest that there's a lot of demand for that sort of product. Caregiver assistance is another big one. And I think that's just on the upswing. We've seen a few startups here, and I'm not necessarily recalling any names off the top of my head. But as we talked about that sort of in-between sandwich generation that's taking care of elderly parents and kids, caregiver assistance becomes a big deal. So those are two that I would point to, but I'm sure there's others as well.
And in terms of customer engagement specifically, I think we didn't talk as much about it, but any specific things that you see are interesting in terms of engaging the customer, being the enterprise or being the end customer or the distribution that you are actually very excited about?
So in particular, the things that we are working on, so I sort of alluded to going outside of the worksite channel. So tools that will help facilitate how individuals, whether they're employees or sort of direct consumers, how do they pick their benefit plans? So we talked about how complex this is going to be. So if you think about a matrix with all these different kinds of employees and all the different benefits on the other axis, how do they make the right choices? So one of the things that we are sort of excited about and are sort of looking to build is selection tools that will help employees and individuals decide what the right level of coverage and what the right kinds of coverage and benefits are.
Very interesting. I think we have like a few minutes left. I don't know if there's anything specific that you want to talk about. If not, I wanted to ask another thing.
Oh, go ahead.
That's okay.
Please
Okay.
do.
So last thing that I think is a little bit newer as well, it sounds like everyone is getting a little bit deeper into the financial protection in general, even outside of student loans. It includes retirement. Want to talk about that a little bit, about, how's that going?
So it's an open-ended question. It's going well, but so I don't necessarily see Aflac becoming a 401k provider, or becoming a bank or whatever, right? So I don't think that is the approach that we're thinking of. What we're looking to do in that space, clearly financial protection is a key aspect of the benefits package, but we are looking to partner. So one such example is, on the commercial side, we've partnered with a student loan provider. I don't want to go back to that, but it's an example. We've looked at partnering with 401k providers. So typically, I think from our standpoint, that's going to be more of a partnered approach rather than a build. But clearly, we're looking to play in that space.
This is a question I haven't practiced with you before this panel. You ready for it? All right. If you
I
were
don't think any of the questions were practiced, by the way.
Not really. I came up with them last night. But here's a question for you that I'm just curious, and feel free to say like I need more time or I can't answer it. If you were to start a startup today, what would that be? In the benefit space, hopefully. If not, I still want to know. Even if it's like a small ice cream shop, I'm okay with it. Anything that you start.
That's going to be my side business,
Okay.
but the primary one's probably going to be, like I said, benefit selection. I think the complexity of sort of the benefits space and how educated people are today about making selections, the right kinds of selections, I think lends itself to a phenomenal opportunity there.
Like a more consultative approach in the sense of helping the end customer.
It's consultative, but it's technology driven.
Got it. Okay, very cool. That being said, I have nothing else to ask. Thank you so much for your time.
I do have something to add.
Okay,
So,
all right. We'll talk about that then.
so two things. So we just launched our acceleration program, our Venture Labs program. So if you're a startup, if you're looking to partner with Aflac, definitely talk to us. Also, I got to throw this in as being Aflac. If you're a startup and you don't offer Aflac, come and talk to me. We'll fix that. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, guys.